Friday, July 3rd. Welcome back to SamCentre. I am your host, Sam. As always, the scenery behind us may look a little different, and that is for one simple reason. SamCentre has hit the road, baby. We are on the road today, Thursday, July 2nd, as I'm recording this video. We are in Calgary, Alberta. We just watched the Calgary Stampeders take on the Toronto Argonauts at McMahon Stadium. They called it the Stampede Bowl. It was a beautiful game. We are going to discuss it as we talk later on in the show. We're going to talk NBA, World Cup, all things in between. But you and I, we need to talk for a moment here. See, I ask you every episode if you could like, comment, subscribe, and maybe, if you don't mind, check out my Instagram. And we need to let you know some of the most breaking news of the century. Head coach of the 2003 Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl champion winning team, Coach Jon Gruden from Barstool Sports, has followed SamCentre on Instagram. This is a massive day, something that all of us can celebrate together in the sidelines. This is a dream come true for me. Someone I've looked up to for multiple years, a Super Bowl winning head coach, at the time the youngest winning head coach in Super Bowl history. Jon Gruden, a guy who is willing to put out content, and he loves the CFL. So I doubt he'll ever see this, but the invitation is there right before we run the intro. Coach Jon Gruden, if you would ever like to talk CFL, come on SamCentre. Let's run it. First things first, let's play the song. Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but... Alright guys, now that I'm done obsessing over the fact that Super Bowl champion Jon Gruden followed me back on Instagram, let's get into the show. So let's talk the weekend and what there is to look forward to. Obviously, no UFC. We have that as number 5 on the agenda for today, so we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But the UFC is taking a weekend off, as are other fight promotions. The World Cup, however, is still going on. There's lots of exciting round of 32 finishing up, and then into the weekend you'll see some of the round of 16 games happening. A few of the stars still need to play, the biggest one being Argentina and Lionel Messi looking to defeat as massive favorites Cape Verde, a team that has been around in this World Cup as an excellent story, but it looks like their run is going to end against the powerhouses in Argentina. Moving on, we'll have France play, we'll have Canada play, we'll have a lot of the teams in action once again. All 3 host nations were able to advance after Mexico and the United States of America both took care of action in their games respectively, Canada being the first to do it. So now all 3 of the host nations are in the round of 16. It's unclear if they'll be able to advance much farther than that. The matchups get a little bit harder as you start to go. Morocco for Canada is going to be a tough test, and they'll be up first. Mexico will play, Team USA will play, and we'll see. It's obviously better for FIFA if they can have USA or Mexico or Canada in there. I mean, especially Mexico and USA, because as the host cities start to get fewer, the host games are going to be in Mexico and the US. So that's going to be big for them, but we'll see what happens. The parties in Mexico have been insane. The parties all across the world have been electric. The soccer has been really fun to watch outside of a lot of the flopping and horrible antics that we talked about in Wednesday's show. But I would tune into the World Cup if you're interested. There's lots going on. Maybe that will get you in the mood for some UFC next weekend when Conor McGregor returns. There's also so much more CFL going on. We're going to throw it down to Sammy's sidelines for him to recap our Stampede Bowl, the first game of our Week 5 CFL slate. But there's still 3 more games that you need to tune into. We're going to discuss all 3 of those games a little bit later on, as well as the Stampede Bowl, no UFC, and then the rest of this SamCentre road trip. Let's run the next segment. Alright, SamCentre, now we are here for our live post-game reaction in the Stampede Bowl. The game between the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts ended 58-36. The Calgary Stampeders taking home the Stampede Bowl. What an incredible game. We want to first touch on the Calgary Stampeders offense.
Vernon Adams at no point could be stopped today. He tied the Calgary Stampeders in-game record for the most touchdown passes thrown by a quarterback, and it was incredible to watch. Every point of the Calgary Stampeders game plan was working today. Their special teams was on it. Their defense was getting interceptions and pressuring Chad Kelly and that Argos offense, which, to their credit, was able to put up an impressive 36 points. However, when you give up 58, you will not win many games in the Canadian Football League. And that's what we saw today. The Calgary Stampeders put up 58 points, and that's the most that we have seen in a regular season game this year across the Canadian Football League. And we talked about it on SamCentre's episode on Wednesday. We thought that Calgary and Toronto would get in a shootout, but we didn't really think it'd be like this, right? Concert at halftime, lots of really exciting things going on with the Stampede starting now tomorrow and into the next multiple weeks. It's going to be a really exciting time in this city. Awesome game today. The fans went home happy, and that's exactly what you want to see. What I'll say with the Toronto Argonauts is this: they're going to be a team that you'll want to tune into to watch every single week. They're going to put up points, and they are going to give up points. We saw a total go way over the projected of 60, so maybe next time just set the total at 80 and let us all enjoy, right? For Calgary, a huge win, another momentum builder for their season, looking to get back into the Western Conference standings after starting the season 0-3 now, 2 consecutive wins against the BC Lions and the Toronto Argonauts. The Stampeders will be looking to keep that momentum rolling. We're going to talk about it even more on Friday's episode of SamCentre. Sammy Sidelines, out.
Thank you, Sidelines. As always, you're looking extremely handsome, my friend. That was a great game. Being able to see Calgary at will score on Toronto was really impressive. Vernon Adams was in another zone. Even when he's falling out of the pocket, falling down, he's able to flip the ball out and get the touchdown pass. That was just the kind of night it was for the Calgary Stampeders and Vernon Adams himself. Tying the Calgary Stampeders single game regular season record for most touchdown passes by a player. We were all chanting, let him go for the record. But obviously, you need to protect your quarterback at that point, right? You don't need to have him go back out there. And we talked about the difference between Vernon Adams and Chad Kelly. We saw it tonight. Both quarterbacks are capable of moving the ball. Both quarterbacks are capable of putting up an extreme amount of points. For Chad Kelly and the Toronto Argonauts offense, you are still able to score, 30 points with Chad Kelly in there, a late touchdown in there with the backup quarterback in Arbuckle. But still, the offense was able to score, and they were able to score often. But there were some key mistakes, obviously big penalties, some mistakes on special teams, and Calgary just really taking it to Toronto from the beginning of the game. One thing that Saskatchewan did a very poor job of against Toronto in the last game was they kept kicking the ball to the playmakers on the Argonauts. And the first thing that you saw the Stampeders do today was squib kick off the opening kickoffs and punt away from the weapons in Toronto. So that takes a massive momentum swing away from the game immediately when that return man cannot break one open immediately and open up the game. Now, the Argos offense, it didn't really matter to them. They could still move the ball essentially at will, but there's a problem with this offense, and it's this. There is no ground game in Toronto. And if you're not going to run the ball and at least keep defenses honest, games like tonight are going to happen, where Chad Kelly is obviously slinging the rock around, still throwing touchdowns, still throwing for multiple yards. But Calgary was kind of just able to pin their ears back, rush the quarterback, and sit back in their zone defense. And they picked him off multiple times. They got to him multiple times with pressure. And it's a big part of it that by the second quarter, there was almost no threat that Toronto was going to run the ball. And if that's the case, you're playing a football game. Your offense needs to be balanced. With Calgary, there were screen passes, there was run plays, there was jet sweeps. There was a lot of different motion in their offense and ways where they were creative in running the ball, and Toronto just abandoned it instantly. So sure, it's working to put up points, but you're really not managing the game at all. Now, so the games like this get away from you. 58 points for the Calgary Stampeders. We have to talk about that. Congratulations, Stampeders fans. What a night it was for you. Taking home the second consecutive Stampede Bowl. Obviously a trophy they made up themselves. But hey, if you're going to make it up, you better win that thing. And they have done that now twice in a row. Really impressive by Vernon Adams. Really impressive by the entire Stampeders receiving corps, as well as their defensive backs who made multiple plays, intercepting Chad Kelly, giving the offense good field position on multiple opportunities, good special teams returns, well-coached defense. I think Calgary, they're going to feel really good about these last 2 weeks. They got punched in the mouth a little bit, lost a few close games, but now taking down a team in BC, who a lot of people projected at the start of the year would be one of the best teams in the league. And then in the very next week, taking down the Toronto Argonauts, who did just dethrone the champs at Regina. So you have to put a little bit of respect on the Toronto Argonauts, unless some of these teams are a little worse than we thought, maybe. My biggest takeaway from this is it's the CFL. These games are going to happen. Teams are going to put up points. This league is so exciting. You saw talent at every single position on the field today. You didn't see a lot of defense, but that's the fun part, right? Kate Burness and the entire TSN panel was there. They presented the Stampede Bowl. Congratulations, Calgary Stampeders. You are going to be the first team on our Victory Monday board from Monday's episode. Now, let's talk the remaining CFL games on our slate. Let's throw it down to our final couple segments of the show. All right, guys, 3 more incredible games left on the CFL slate in this week 5. We have the defending champion Saskatchewan Roughriders after their loss on the road in Regina to the Toronto Argonauts. They are looking to bounce back, this time on a true road test in Ottawa, taking on the Red Blacks. And the Red Blacks really did show some heart last week. They were able to try, at least, to come back against the Montreal Alouettes on the road. They made it a very competitive game, and if a couple kicks, a couple possessions go a different way, maybe they're able to win that game. As for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they have shown a couple reasons for concern early on in this season, but obviously losing against a high-powered offense in Toronto is maybe not the worst, right? Toronto just went out there and put up 36 points against Calgary, even though they did give up 58. So for Saskatchewan, this will be a bounce-back game. Mace and his coaching staff will have the boys ready. I'm more than convinced about that. There were multiple times against the Argonauts where I just felt that the decision-making, either on offense, defense, and special teams wasn't fully there. And that's going to happen over a long season. You're not going to be perfect in every game. So for the Riders, massive get-back opportunity. We talked about it a little bit more in depth on Wednesday's show. For the Red Blacks, you need to start winning games. You need to start putting some of that positive momentum forward into wins, because just losing a game competitively is not going to matter at all at the end of the season if you miss the playoffs and your fans are upset at you. The fans are calling for your job if you're the coach, if you're the quarterback, and how you silence them is you go out there against the defending champions and you put on an excellent performance. Official SamCentre prediction is going to stay the same. I believe the Saskatchewan Roughriders will defeat the Ottawa Red Blacks. But it's possible that Ottawa makes a game of it, because I haven't been extremely impressed with Saskatchewan's defense. And as much as I'm a certified Jake Mayer non-believer on this channel, I was extremely impressed by the resolve shown by the Ottawa Red Blacks to come back in their game last week against Montreal. Let's move on to the reason we are on the road. The next game, Game 2 of the Kelowna series kickoff. Soon the BC Lions will be able to return home to their stadium in Vancouver. As the World Cup is wrapping up their obligations in Vancouver, they're going to move on to other cities. And so the Lions, you're almost home. But you got to play one more in Kelowna and a couple more on the road before that. And that's going to be against the Edmonton Elks, the undefeated Edmonton Elks in Week 5 against the winless BC Lions. This is a game that on paper you see 3-0 against 0-3, and you think to yourself, easiest game of the week to predict. And in reality, it's probably the most difficult game of the week to predict. You have a team in Edmonton who's looked great in all 3 of their wins. All 3 wins being fairly close. A 1-possession win against Ottawa, a 1-possession win against Winnipeg, and against Montreal. And then as for BC, they've been a competitive somewhat, at least on the scoreboard in their games. Week 1 for them was competitive, and then since then, it really hasn't been super close. The games have looked good. The scores looked good, but that's because you kind of scored in garbage time, late fourth quarter touchdowns, being able to do that. The actual game was out of reach early on, and BC cannot allow that to happen against the Edmonton Elks in Kelowna on July 4th. If that happens, if they go down early and the Edmonton Elks are able to rely on Justin Rankin, if they're able to let Cody Fajardo move the ball around, spread the ball around to his receivers, it's going to be bad news for the BC Lions. However, if Nathan Rourke can go out there and prove again why he is deserving of being the MVP, because he really hasn't shown us a ton this year. I mean, it hasn't all been on him, right? There's a ton of key injuries. They're settling into the flow of the season. It's only been 3 games. But Nathan Rourke needs to start to show us why he is so highly regarded in the league. You know, he needs to start putting some games together, start winning it for the BC Lions, because now Calgary has wins, Saskatchewan has wins, Edmonton, and Winnipeg. You are the only team in the West without those wins, so you need to start to put it together. So, my official SamCentre prediction is going to be the Edmonton Elks to take a close game 24-21 in BC, have the Lions start 0-4, have the Elks start 4-0, and we are going to be celebrating on Victory Monday. I cannot wait. Last game of the week, we have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers traveling over to Hamilton, to the Hammer, to take on the Hamilton Ticats. A game that is a rematch of a couple weeks ago when they met in Winnipeg, a game that Hamilton ended up winning. So, do we expect anything to be any different this week? I'm not sure. I really do think Hamilton, coming off a bye week, coming off of their impressive performances, you know, their only loss being a very competitive loss. So, I think they're going to be extremely tough of a test for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You know, Winnipeg looked all right against Edmonton. They did have an opportunity to win that game late before conceding the final touchdown against Cody Fajardo. However, I'm a little bit worried about them. The games have been close, but you're still losing the close games. And we talked about it doesn't matter if you play well, but you lose, because all anyone's going to remember at the end of the year is, do you have that 1 at the end of the week beside your name, or do you have the O? And we're going to see, right? We're going to see if they win the game, or if they don't. And if they don't win the game, now you're starting to fall behind in the West. Just like we talked about with BC. Other teams are stacking up wins. Calgary now will be above you. Edmonton and Saskatchewan as well. And so you're starting to look at potentially not having a home playoff game, having to go on the road and play somewhere else, or even crossing over to the East. As for Hamilton, this is an extremely important week for them. Bo Levi Mitchell, coming off of a bye week, they're going to be really well prepared. They're going to be ready to throw the ball around. And if Winnipeg is not able to keep up, they only scored 18 points last week against the Elks. So if they're not able to do that, Hamilton's scoring more than 18 at home. I can almost guarantee that. Official SamCentre prediction, Hamilton to win by 10 points against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. All right, guys, let's talk in the final bit of the show. There's no UFC. And that makes me sad because you guys know it's UFC Friday on this channel. There's some upcoming events that we do need to talk about. Conor McGregor, Max Holloway. We have a ton of reasons to tune into that card. Next week, we're going to break down every single one of the matchups in great detail because I believe there's reasons to tune in, even on the early prelims where you have former champions like Cody Garbrandt fighting on there. In the following weeks, the UFC is going to continue to roll. They're going to head to Oklahoma City. They're going to head to multiple other places in the world, including Serbia. We are going to touch on all of those. But the rest of the week, we have a little bit more content being made in BC. Hopefully I'm able to interview some fans, get you some live content. If you're interested at all, check out the short tab for SamCentre YouTube, or check out my Instagram at SamCentre Official. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here, for bearing with us in this temporary SamCentre setup. I want to say, follow along on the Shorts tab. Follow along with the SamCentre official Instagram page. We have a lot going on here. You'll get to see Coach John Gruden in our following tab. But most importantly, we have different sideline interactions. I filmed the halftime show at the Stampede Bowl. There's different things that I just cannot put on this channel for various reasons, and they'll live on our Shorts tab or on our Instagram. There's another place where you can send me messages, maybe get a hold of me. But most importantly, the last thing I need to say in the way we finish out every single show, SamCentre out.
Yo, I'm sat on the throne, but I'm looking at the blueprints. Building a temple where the spirit leaves its footprints. Gibeonites, the most high asked what I'm needing. Didn't ask for peas or for enemies to be bleeding. I asked for the wisdom, the hokmah, the insight to distinguish distinguish the dark from the frequency of light. See, I built the first house, see the wood and gold plate between Jeshurun and Boaz, standing at the gate. The pillars of the world, severity and mercy. The path is narrow, man, the road is getting thirsty, but the temple laid stone, that's the trick for the blind. The real masonry is the structure of the mind. Seal of the king, two triangles entwined. The lower reflecting the upper design. Master of the spirits, I made the demons work. Building up the temple where the shadows used to lurk. It's the wisdom of Solomon, the heavyweight crown. Building up the spirit while the system falling down. Building up the spirit. Yeah, they say I had the ring, the brass and the iron, commanding the glacier, the wolf and the lion. See, the demons are just facets of the ego and the greed. I harness the shadows to plant the holy seed. You gotta kill the beast, you gotta make it move the blocks. Put the vices in the furnace, turning keys inside the lock. 72 spirits, yeah, I kept them in the vessel. Every conscious man has a demon he must wrestle. If you don't control the lower, then the lower controls you. That's how the temple falls and the spirit gets through. I saw the vanity, the chasing of the wind, but the wisdom is the treasure underneath the skin. I sat with the queen, yeah, Sheba brought the riddle, trying to find a set and not the sides or the middles. She saw the cupbearer, the order of the table. Realize that history is more than just a fable. It's the key of Solomon, the magic in the map, finding your geometry on the righteous path. From the quarry to the corner, I'm the stone they rejected. To the master workman saw the spirit was perfected. Modern day Solomon, I'm building in the ends, turning all the haters and the demons into friends. The temple is complete when the heart is in tune. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the moon. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity unless you know the